I need your help. I got deported. I'm in Japan because they couldn't tell if I'm Hispanic or Asian. The Democrats are right. I'm not safe in Trump's America. I need help, please. Democrats, please help me.
You're not safe, ma'am.
Community member named Sammy could be deported by ICE even though he has lived in New York for 45 years.
ICE is disappearing Bhutanese refugees at a really scary pace right now.
Vietnamese Americans are the only Asian ethnic group that is majority Republican.
How the hell are you going to be Vietnamese American and think to yourself for even 1 second that Asians are not going to be caught up in all of this?
The fear, the silence, especially from those within the Asian American community, has been really weighing heavily on my heart.
You don't need to fit into America. America was never built for you to fit in.
But tons of Asian American only see deportation topic as the Hispanic issues. ICE doesn't just target people based on race. They target all immigrants like us. They target based on past records, immigrant status, and mistakes in the system.
Since the beginning of mass deportations in America that is being conducted by Trump administration, we have had many stories of Latinos, Caribbeans, and even African immigrants being deported. But it's not often that we hear about the deportation of Asian immigrants. And this might make you wonder, are Asian immigrants immune to this Trump deportation? No, they are not. They are not immune to Trump deportation. In fact, in the past few weeks, we've had some stories of Bhutanese immigrants being deported and even some Vietnamese immigrants being deported. I want you to hear from these stories of deportations of some Asian immigrants, and then I will come back at the end and break it all down for you to understand what's going on. And remember that this video is for educational purposes and the full credits goes to the original creators of the clips featured in this video. Stay locked in.
Community member named Sammy could be deported by ICE even though he has lived in New York for 45 years. Sammy came here as a child refugee fleeing from the bombings in Laos, and unfortunately his mom died in a refugee camp. He was raised here and this is quite literally his only home. At 15 years old, Sammy made a tragic mistake. However, he already served 14 years in prison, and it's been over 2 decades since he's been released and has been peacefully living with his family and poses no threat to his community. Now ICE is trying to deport him, and we are seeing across the United States that ICE has been targeting Southeast Asian refugees, including those from Laos. We need your help right now to urge Governor Hochul to pardon Sammy, as this is the only way he could get to stay in the US and stay with his family.
Everyone needs to know that ICE is disappearing Bhutanese refugees at a really scary pace right now. They're suddenly snatching people up in states like Pennsylvania, Ohio, Texas, and New York and deporting them to Bhutan, the very country that ethnically cleansed their community. We're talking about Nepali-speaking Bhutanese people who immigrated to America as lawful refugees after being persecuted by the Bhutanese government in the 80s and 90s. Back then, the Bhutanese regime arbitrarily stripped them of their citizenship and labeled them illegal immigrants, even though most had lived there for many generations. Well over 100,000 Nepali-speaking Bhutanese people were denied their rights, torn from their homes, and forced out of the country. Many ended up in 7 different refugee camps in Nepal where conditions were inhumane. And when the US offered humanitarian relief, thousands resettled here and got green cards, with many eventually becoming American citizens.
Originally from Bhutan, Jahal spent 20 years in a Nepal refugee camp where he said food was limited and shelter was poor. But Jahal isn't suffering anymore. On Tuesday, he joined 68 others at Castleton University in gaining his American citizenship.
They consider America their forever home, but in just the past few weeks, over 60 Bhutanese refugees have been detained by ICE. From what we last heard, roughly 20 refugees have been flown to India and then forced across the border into Bhutan, where they face persecution and expulsion. Eventually, all 20 were rejected by Bhutan and forced through India into Nepal. We know at least 4 people are now in police custody in Nepal. All others are missing, leaving their families terrified and desperate for answers.
We don't know if they are safe, we don't know if they died, we don't know if, what happened. How is it happening? We came here legally.
These refugees are now stateless again, caught between governments unwilling to offer refuge. Bhutan disowned them, Nepal is taking them into custody, and the US, which once offered safety and freedom, is turning its back. There's still a lot we don't know because ICE isn't being transparent, but we do know most of the targeted refugees have green cards and have lived in America for many, many years. Some have had run-ins with the law but served their time, and ICE says they're being targeted for this reason. But let's be clear, regardless of someone's record, it's still not an excuse to disappear them and put them in dangerous situations without adequate due process and without any regard for their safety or human rights. Historically, it has not been normal for the US to deport immigrants to countries that will persecute them or deny their existence. That's because, up until now, the US has agreed that doing so goes against our laws and our fundamental human rights. But Trump and his loyalists are doing it anyway, because they want to get rid of immigrants of color as quickly as possible without due process. And they don't care one bit about anyone's safety or humanity. If we don't act now, countless more families will be torn apart, lives will be at risk, and our shared rights will erode even further. That's why we need you to contact your representative and tell them to demand Trump stop these deportations and immediately release and return the Bhutanese refugees.
Vietnamese Americans are the only Asian ethnic group that is majority Republican. And I'm not talking pre-2016 Republican, I'm talking raging Trump supporter Republican. I just had to unfollow this Vietnamese influencer. She's literally not a US citizen. She came to the US like 10 years ago, but she posted a screenshot of her and her family member from and in Vietnam wearing MAGA hats and celebrating over Trump's victory. They are both Vietnamese citizens, not US citizens. So I don't know what's going through their minds here. When I lived in LA, I would go to OC a lot for Viet food, and I saw several Vietnamese for Trump rallies. I will never forget the China virus rally that I saw in 2020. That's obviously a reason why a lot of Viet people are pro-Trump. Trump is very anti-China, and so are Vietnamese Americans. They're anti-China for obvious historical reasons, and also the fact that they're anti-communist because of the Vietnam War and they're from the South. Trump is single-handedly responsible for the over 300% rise in anti-Asian hate crimes in this country. I don't know why Vietnamese people think that racists can distinguish us from Chinese people. Like, we all look the same to them. I also think that legal immigrants tend to be very anti-illegal immigration. I think they feel, oh, because I had to go through this lengthy legal process, they should too. Like, there shouldn't be any shortcuts. That's not fair to me. A lot of Viet people are also Catholic, and we all know that for some reason most Christians only focus on abortion, and that's like the most important thing to them, even though Jesus was a socialist and believed that we should give back and help the poor and other marginalized groups. I'm definitely trying to make sense of why Viet Americans and other groups vote the way that they do. I think a lot of it is just the fact that most people aren't super politically informed and just go along with what the popular belief in their community is and what they think is most beneficial for them personally and will solve their biggest hurdle in life. All I can hope for is that the younger generation is doing their part to stay informed and are voting for what is best for society as a whole and what will unite this country and its people. Anyway, if you made it this far into the video, I hope that you are doing well, you're protecting your peace, and you're finding ways to stay positive.
I am born and raised in Los Angeles. I also go to UCLA. However, my mom was born in South Korea and immigrated to the States like 30 years ago. The other night, she was actually telling me how she was kind of scared about maybe getting deported back to South Korea, and how she canceled all her summer plans of going to South Korea because she was scared that she wouldn't be able to come back to the States. And hearing that, I told her like, oh, that's not gonna happen. Like, but then seeing it get worse and worse, and seeing all these families like being like torn apart and stuff, I start to realize like, oh, like, I don't know, this could happen, which is really, really scary. I mean, I'm not really too educated about the situation we're in right now. But yeah, we're in a very, very scary situation. I just want to send my best wishes to all the families out there that are being directly affected. But yeah.
How the hell are you gonna be Vietnamese American and think to yourself for even 1 second that Asians are not going to be caught up in all of this. Someone just told me that that was a conversation that they just had with another Vietnamese American, and I will not stand by that ignorance. First of all, it's insane to me that you have to feel directly affected in order to feel empathy for others. Over Memorial Day weekend, 160 community members were deported on a single flight to Laos and Vietnam. ICE is already present in Orange County, Little Saigon. To those who didn't care before, do you now? Do you understand now? They're in our backyard. It makes me indescribably angry, and I am not good with words. To know that Vietnamese Americans don't care about what's happening when our own community came here only 2 generations ago. I wish I could articulate my words better, but it's just time for people to wake the hell up and stop being ignorant.
Happening with the ICE raids, the fear, the silence, especially from those within the Asian American community, has been really weighing heavily on my heart. I grew up in Queens, New York around large Latino and Hispanic communities, and I've witnessed firsthand how deeply connected our communities are. A lot of Asian-owned businesses often rely on the labor of undocumented workers, often quietly without any acknowledgement. And now when the same people are being targeted, the silence is loud. It's painful. We come from immigrant families. We know what fear looks like, and we know what sacrifice looks like. And yet so many of us turn a blind eye when others are being targeted for the very reasons we're here. To those who are affected, I don't know what to say. I am truly sorry. You deserve to feel safe and you deserve to be seen. And to influencers, this moment calls for more than just posts about hidden gems in LA and food spots. If we love the city and its people, we need to show up for them too. If you have the privilege to post about where to shop in LA, then you have the power to say this isn't right. That is not political, that is just being human. I am not trying to call people out just to create noise. I am saying this because I care. This isn't about blame, it's about showing up. Speaking up doesn't require a perfect statement. It's honestly just about heart and showing compassion. And if you have a platform, even a small one like mine, it does matter. Be the voice for those who can't.
You don't need to fit into America. America was never built for you to fit in. And honestly, it will never fully accept you trying to fit in either. A lot of Chinese students come here with a test-taking mindset. We treat America like it's an exam. We study it, analyze it, try to become the perfect answer. We change our names, speak broken English on purpose, even act like we're second-gen Asian American, when we're not. But here's the truth. America doesn't reward people who blend in. It respects people who build their own space. Someone who leads and not follow. Look at the other groups. Irish, Italians, Jews, Russians, Indians. They don't try to erase the culture to fit in. They build strong communities, support each other, protect their identity, and claim their power. That's why they have their own neighborhoods, their own resources, and even political influence. Meanwhile, so many Chinese students and scholars try to wash themselves, erase the culture, speak only English, act like they belong here more than they actually do. But in the end, they still get called chick on the street. Why? Because they never learn to build their own space. They only learn to assimilate into someone else's. Here's what people don't tell you. In America, even if you're weak, you have to act strong. Fake it till you make it is real. This place respects confidence, even if it's fake. If you walk in soft-spoken, overly humble, always apologizing, people won't think you're kind. They'll think you're easy to ignore. So no, don't try to find your place. Make your place. Don't wait for permission. Don't beg to be included. Create your own room, build your own rules, and let others fit into your world.
Where the fuck are all the Asians? The thousands of Asians in LA either wanting to be an influencer in TikTok or are influencers on TikTok that have hundreds or tens of thousands or millions of followers. Like, you can't put down your fucking matcha for like literally 2 seconds and speak out about what's happening right now. I go on fucking TikTok, it's the same 4 like wonderful activist Asians on here. But then everybody else just still, regularly scheduled program, my outfit of the day, going to another fucking Korean barbecue restaurant. Like, the restaurant you're at is built on immigrants. This entire city is built on immigrants. Like, you went to fucking UC Irvine, you got your fucking marketing degree. I'm sure you took 1 humanities class, honey. Like, I promise you, if you just don't post one TikTok dance and you take 30 seconds to speak on children getting ripped away from an elementary school graduation, people being locked in the basements of federal buildings without food or water, the National Guard being deployed on your city. Like, I know that, like, shame doesn't work on you. Like, nothing works on you because you've had to create this shell. But, like, your $600 post that you're making for tummy tea is not going to save you here. You're scared of, like, oh, your brand getting tainted, or, like, you won't be able to get brand deals. Like, with the rate that information suppression is going, like, you won't have TikTok to fucking sell your fucking boba flavored protein powder on here. Like, you won't have the time. You won't have the platform to do so. Like, your parents or your grandparents came here for a better life, and then now that you have a better life, you've already fucking forgotten the context as to which you fucking exist in this realm. Like, you don't have to be a civil rights expert or an econ expert or a fucking, like, lawyer to understand that what is happening needs to be stood up against. Like, you are the people that are populating the Capitol right now. Like, you will be next. Like, with black folk, they weaponize the police. With brown folk, they weaponize immigration. With Asian folk, they weaponize legislation. So the clock is ticking, sweetie. The clock is tick-tock in a way. I don't give a fuck if you feel awkward about speaking something. Or I don't give a fuck if you're like, oh, I'm sorry, I've never spoken about this before, or whatever. It's not too late. It's not too late. I promise to you, it's not too late to listen to that tiny voice in the back of your head. I've been on this fucking app for 2.5, almost 3 months. That's all. But it's not that fucking hard. You open the app and you do the thing. You don't have to fucking edit it. You can just say it fucking non sequitur and just speak from your fucking tiny, shriveled, but beating heart. Please. I just fucking beg you.
I'm an Asian immigrant with legal documents and US citizenship. I understand that I don't have a big platform, but I would still like to use my voice to speak up. Today, I'd like to discuss the topic of deportation. Although I am a citizen, a lot of my family members are immigrants who have not gained US citizenship yet, but they still came here with green cards and legal documents. I understand that a lot of you guys are immigrants or have family members that are immigrants like mine too, but tons of Asian American only see deportation topic as the Hispanic issues. ICE doesn't just target people based on race. They target all immigrants like us. They target based on past records, immigrant status, and mistakes in the system. In 2025, ICE has deported over 150,000 people within the first half of the year alone. Fun fact, ICE is actually on track for deporting over 300,000 people by the end of 2025. And just a few weeks ago, a court in LA had to block ICE from doing broad sweeps in neighborhood because they were stopping people based on language and location, not actual warrants. Here's the truth. 65% of Asian Americans are born outside of the US. That means that the immigrants policy affects us just as much as anyone else. And it's not just undocumented people. Green card holders, refugees, and even permanent residents are being detained for old charges. When ICE raids happen, people from all backgrounds get caught up, and that includes US citizens. All because they just simply look foreign or speak another language. We need to stop thinking it won't happen to our families, and instead start protecting our families. Here are a few things you can do. Number 1, learn your rights. When ICE comes to your door, you're not obligated to open the door for them unless they have a judge-signed warrant. Number 2, you have the right to remain silent and to ask for a lawyer. Number 3, do not sign anything without legal advice. Number 4, keep your important documents in a safe. Number 5, share the Know Your Rights card with your family members. We cannot let fears or ignorance divide our community. That includes whether you're Asian, Hispanic, African, or from anywhere else. But at the end of the day, we're all immigrants or came from immigrants' families. If we as a community chooses to stay silent, ICE wins. If we choose to stand together, not only will we protect our families, but we will protect families from others around us. So please, speak up, educate others, so we all know what to do.
If you're Laotian American, chances are your family didn't just immigrate. They escaped. They fled a war they didn't start, survived bombs that they didn't ask for, and came to a country that never prepared to receive them. This is a story of Laotian resettlement in America. During the Vietnam War, the United States waged a secret war in Laos, one of the most heavily bombed countries in world history. From 1964 to 1973, the US dropped over 2 million tons of bombs on Laos, more than what was dropped during all of World War II. In order to fight communism, the CIA recruited local ethnic groups like the Hmong, the Yumian, the Khmu, and Lowland Lao to help the United States. But when the war ended, the United States left, and anyone who helped America became a target of the communist Pathet Lao regime. Tens of thousands of Laotians fled their homes, crossing the Mekong River into Thailand in order to reach refugee camps. From there, many were resettled in the United States beginning in the late 1970s through the 1980s. Many Laotian families arrived with no money, no English, and almost no support. Many were resettled in working-class cities like Stockton, California, St. Paul, Minnesota, Dallas, Texas, and parts of Washington state. Financial struggles were immediate and long-lasting. Many parents worked multiple low-wage jobs in factories, farms, or meatpacking plants. Some were underpaid or exploited because they couldn't speak English, so they couldn't speak up. Families of 8 or more squeezed into tiny apartments, and mental health services were almost non-existent. Laotian families today still have one of the highest poverty rates among Asian American groups, with nearly 1 in 5 living below the poverty line. In school, Laotian students were invisible. There were no history lessons on Laos, no teachers who understood the trauma of war, and no cultural representation, just the pressure to assimilate. Many students became translators for their families at a young age. As for college, it was more of a dream than a reality. As of 2020, roughly 19% of Laotian Americans hold a bachelor's degree, which is far below the national average and the overall Asian American rate. Why, you may ask? Because trauma doesn't disappear in one generation, and poverty doesn't just go away with hard work. In the 1990s and early 2000s, some Laotian youth disconnected from their culture and rejected by mainstream media turned to gangs for identity, protection, and belonging. Groups like the Asian Boys and other local street gangs emerged in Laotian communities in California, Minnesota, and elsewhere. But that's not the full story. Many Laotian youth were caught in the middle. They were either too Asian for America or too American for their parents, too silenced to speak up, or too traumatized to heal. And generational trauma ran deep. Parents who witnessed massacres never talked about it. Children were taught to survive instead of dream, and emotional pain was hidden behind silence and shame. But Laotian Americans are more than their struggle. They are healers, educators, artists, and truth tellers. They are now creating ethnic study programs, founding mental health organizations, reclaiming Lao language and culture, running for office, building community wealth, and finally, telling their own story. People like Brian Tao Wara, a Lao American poet, and Chanapa Kambongsa, who founded Legacies of War to fight for bomb removal in Laos, are using their voices to empower others. Young Lao Americans are breaking cycles of silence. They're starting podcasts, opening nonprofits, and sharing their stories on platforms like this to say, they are still here. They are not forgotten people, and they will be the ancestors their future generations thank. So let's learn more about their history, uplift Laotian stories, and support Southeast Asian mental health and education programs. Because they didn't just survive war. They are building peace generation by generation.
As an Asian American, I'm extremely disappointed to see the lack of Asian and Asian American creators speaking out about what's happening with ICE, the deportations, and especially in California. As someone that was born and raised and has lived in California my entire life, I have the extreme privilege and sense of safety that comes with being a natural-born citizen. I'm also Chinese American, and my grandparents immigrated from their respective countries. On my Japanese side, my grandfather put a lot of time and effort and care into building his own business in Washington. When the internment camps started happening, all of his efforts to help support my family, to give them a happy, healthy, safe life, and to give them opportunities, all of those efforts were ultimately disregarded, disrespected, and dehumanized
when he was sent to an internment camp. And after the internment camps, he was never given any of that back. He had to work again to build a safe life for my family. The internment camps are a proof of a concept where our Asian communities are not safe. And Trump actually has been targeting Asian communities for deportation, particularly Southeast Asian communities. As Asian Americans, we have a unique perspective on what's going on because our families and our communities have also faced brutalization, have been targeted, we've faced discrimination, we've faced racism, and we know what it's like to be denied opportunity just because of what we look like or where we or our families come from. And if you're like me and you have the privilege to be a natural born citizen, I strongly urge you to use your empathy, your perspective, your experiences in your family, to use your voice to find out how you can support your local communities and keep your eyes and ears open to what's going on. Watch the news, share resources, understand and educate yourself on what to do if you witness an ICE deportation, if ICE ever comes to your house hoping to deport you or one of your family members, and to not fall victim to bystander effect or letting yourself not say anything because it's the easier thing to do. I hope that this can be a wake-up call for my fellow Asian Americans that you cannot be complicit in what's going on right now. What's happening is even if it's not affecting your direct immediate family, is going to affect your community and is affecting your local communities. I'm not even a content creator. I'm not even a small one. I barely even make content. And I know it can be easy to get worried about saying the right thing, doing the right thing, showing up in the right way. But at this point, all that matters is that you're using your voice in some way and raising awareness about what's going on. This is not a political or legal issue. This is a human issue.
Asian Americans are being deported, especially Bhutanese and Vietnamese immigrants. These are communities with deep histories in America, communities that have faced struggles and triumphs. Why are deportations happening now? To understand that, we need to look at their journey to America in the first place. Let's start with Bhutanese. Most Bhutanese refugees in the US didn't go there directly from Bhutan. They went there from the refugee camp in Nepal. Back in the late 1980s and the early 1990s, Bhutan's government launched a campaign that was known as One Nation, One People policy. This targeted ethnic Nepalese living in Bhutan, stripping them of citizenship and forcing them out of the country. Many fled to Nepal, where they spent decades in refugee camps. Fast forward to mid-2000s. The United States, along with other countries like Canada and Australia, agreed to resettle these refugees. Between 2008 and 2015, over 85,000 Bhutanese refugees were resettled in the US. They arrived there legally under humanitarian programs. They went there looking for safety, education, and opportunities to rebuild their lives after many years of statelessness. So, why are some of them facing deportation today? It's complicated. For some, it's because of old immigration paperwork issues or minor criminal charges that trigger deportation proceedings under stricter immigration enforcement policies. Many of these families thought they were safe after being granted asylum or refugee status, but refugee status doesn't automatically mean permanent residence or citizenship. If people didn't naturalize or if they had legal complications, they can still face deportation. For the Bhutanese community, this is heartbreaking because many have nowhere else to go. They have already lost one home. Now, let's talk about Vietnamese American community. Their story goes back to Vietnam War. After the fall of Saigon in 1975, thousands of Vietnamese fled the country to escape persecution under the new communist government. The first wave of refugees included former South Vietnamese soldiers, government officials, and their families. Later, more came during the 1980s and 1990s, often enduring dangerous journey by boat, what people called the boat people. The US played a huge role in resettling Vietnamese refugees because of its involvement in the war. Over the decades, the Vietnamese community became one of the most successful and resilient immigrant groups in America. Many built businesses and became very patriotic Americans. So, why are some of them now facing deportation? Again, legal technicalities. Some never became citizens, they became permanent residents. And under the US migration law, permanent residents can still be deported for certain criminal convictions, even decades old. Another factor in the US agreements with Vietnam, for a long time, Vietnam refused to take back people who left before 1995, but policies have shifted over the years. This means some people who thought they were safe are now vulnerable. One important thing about the Vietnamese American community, many are deeply anti-communist. They saw family members jailed, unalive, or forced into labor camps by the communist regime. That trauma has shaped their politics in America. Many Vietnamese Americans are very conservative and anti-communist. In the recent years, that aligned them with the politicians who are tough on socialism and communism. That includes Donald Trump. In fact, in 2016 and 2020, a significant portion of Vietnamese Americans voted for Trump. But here is the irony. Some of the same communities that supported Trump because of his anti-communist stance are now being affected by the stricter immigration enforcement that started under his administration. This is a complex situation. Political loyalty doesn't always guarantee protection. Let's not forget the human side of this. We are all talking about people who have been there for decades, raised children in America, worked very hard, paid taxes, built businesses. For many, America is the only home they know. Being deported now means being sent to the country they barely remember, or in some cases, never lived as adults. This raises bigger questions about migration, identity. How the Trump administration treat communities that went to the US because of wars America was involved in? What responsibility does America have to those who risked everything to go to the US legally under their programs? And beyond that, what does this say about the future of migration in America? If refugees can be sent back decades later, what does that mean for the promise of safety America gives to people fleeing violence and persecution? This is not about politics, it's about people, families, history, and promises made. Deporting people who have built their lives in America for decades sends a chilling message. What do you think? Should people who went to the US as refugees decades ago still be deported for old mistakes? Should there be a path to forgiveness? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I want to hear from you. And that was it for today. Mr. TA signing off. Ciao.